All right, so get ready because we're about to take a deep dive with me into a hidden world, one that's lurking right inside your walls. Yeah, we're talking about mice, but not the cute cartoon kind. These little guys, they actually have a taste for electrical wiring. And you actually sent us some pretty fascinating information from Electrocode of Las Vegas that we're going to kind of dig into today. So imagine this. You've got flickering lights, that weird burning smell that you can't quite place. What if I told you those are signs of a much bigger problem? It turns out those tiny teeth can cause some serious electrical havoc, even in your car. Buckle up, because today we're going to uncover how to spot the signs, understand the dangers, and learn how to protect our homes and vehicles from these tiny but mighty troublemakers.
Most people don't realize just how much damage mice can do.
Yeah.
It's not just about a few nibbles here and there. We're
Okay.
talking about the potential for electrical fires, costly repairs, and even health risks.
Yeah, that's what really caught my attention in the material from Electrocode. They talk about those obvious signs, right? Like
Mhm.
chewed insulation, especially in those easy to miss spots like the attic or behind appliances.
Right.
But then they get into the less obvious clues.
Uh-huh.
Flickering lights, for example. I always assumed that was a wiring issue, not a mouse issue.
It's easy to overlook, right? But those seemingly minor annoyances can be the first warning signs of mice gnawing on your electrical system.
Oh, wow.
And that faint burning smell, that's definitely something to take seriously.
Okay.
When mice chew through wire insulation, it exposes the wires, which can overheat and potentially spark a fire.
Okay, so that's making me think twice about ignoring those flickering lights.
Yeah.
Now, here's something I've always wondered. Why are mice so drawn to wires in the first place? What makes them such appealing snacks?
It's actually not about the taste. It's about their teeth. Mice have constantly growing incisors, and they need to gnaw on things to keep them trimmed. The insulation on electrical wiring, particularly the kind made with certain plastics, has a texture that's perfect for that.
Yeah.
Think of it like a constant dental appointment for them.
So it's almost like a biological imperative, not just random mischief.
Exactly.
Hmm.
They're not setting out to cause chaos, they're just trying to maintain their dental health.
Oh,
Plus, the warmth and shelter that electrical systems provide are attractive to mice, especially as the weather gets colder.
right.
And all those wires tucked away in walls and ceilings, they create perfect hidden highways for mice to move around undetected.
It makes sense now why Electrocode emphasizes the importance of sealing up any gaps or cracks in your home's exterior.
Right.
Even a small opening can become a welcome mat for a mouse looking for a cozy, wire-filled haven.
Absolutely. They recommend using steel wool or caulk to block those entry points. Steel wool is particularly effective because it's difficult for mice to chew through.
That's a good tip. I'm definitely going to be checking my house for any potential mouse-sized entry points now. But let's get back to those warning signs. Electrocode mentions scratching sounds in the walls, especially at night. I've always just thought of that as creepy, not necessarily a sign of electrical danger.
Think of it this way. You're hearing them working on your wiring system from the inside. They're creating pathways, building nests, and of course, chewing on those delicious wires.
Huh.
And that's not just creepy, it's potentially dangerous.
And here's another one I bet most people wouldn't connect to mice. A frequently tripping circuit breaker. Is that really a sign of mice at work?
It can be. When mice chew through insulation, they can cause short circuits, which overload the circuit and cause the breaker to trip.
Okay.
Let me explain. A short circuit happens when a wire carrying electricity comes into contact with another wire or a grounded surface. It's like a sudden surge of electricity taking an unintended shortcut.
So it's not just the mouse chewing on a single wire, it's the potential for that exposed wire to touch something else and create a much bigger problem.
Exactly. That's why a frequently tripping circuit breaker should never be ignored. It could be a sign of a much more serious issue lurking behind your walls.
This is all starting to make me a little paranoid, but it's also incredibly fascinating. I had no idea these seemingly minor issues could be connected to such a hidden danger.
That's the thing about mice. They're masters of disguise. They operate in the shadows, and their damage can go unnoticed for a long time until it's too late.
Okay, so we've talked about the signs and why mice love wires. But before we get into prevention, let's dig into the dangers a little deeper. We've touched on the risk of fire, but what other consequences are we talking about here?
Well, apart from the obvious danger of electrical fires, there's also the inconvenience of power failures. Mice chewing through wires can disrupt the flow of electricity, causing lights to flicker, appliances to malfunction, and even entire circuits to shut down.
And we all know how frustrating it can be to lose power, especially when you're in the middle of something important.
Absolutely. It can disrupt our daily lives, especially in our increasingly technology-dependent world. Imagine losing power during a work deadline or a family movie night. It's more than just an inconvenience. It can be a major disruption.
And it's not just about the immediate frustration. What about the long-term cost of these tiny troublemakers?
Yeah, you're hitting a crucial point there. The financial burden of mice damage can really add up. Think about it. You've got the cost of hiring an electrician to track down and repair the damaged wiring.
Right.
Plus, if a fire does occur, the damage to your home and belongings could be substantial.
Electrocode even mentioned the potential health risks associated with mice and chewed wires, which I found really surprising.
Right, that's an aspect many people overlook. Mice carry diseases and parasites, and their droppings and urine can contaminate areas where they've been nesting.
Right.
Now imagine those droppings near exposed, chewed wires.
Oh,
It's not just an electrical hazard, it becomes a biohazard as well.
that's a disturbing thought, especially for families with young children or elderly individuals who might be more susceptible to those health risks.
Precisely, and it underscores the importance of addressing any signs of mice activity promptly and thoroughly.
So let's shift gears and talk about what we can actually do to protect ourselves. What are some practical steps listeners can take to prevent mice from turning their homes into a chew toy?
Well, we've already touched on sealing entry points, and that's truly the first line of defense.
Yeah.
But it's not just about the exterior walls. Think about vents, gaps around pipes, even those tiny openings where cables enter your house.
So it's about being really thorough and thinking like a mouse, looking for any possible way in.
Exactly. And once you've sealed up those potential entry points, think about making your home less appealing to mice in general.
Okay.
Keeping a clean and clutter-free environment goes a long way. Mice love to hide and nest in cluttered areas, so reducing clutter eliminates those hiding spots.
And I'm guessing that means being extra diligent about food storage too, right? Those crumbs we barely notice could be a feast for a mouse.
Absolutely. Store food in airtight containers, wipe up spills promptly, and don't leave pet food out overnight. Basically, eliminate any easy food sources that might entice them to stick around.
Electrocode had some interesting suggestions about using deterrents. What are your thoughts on those? Do things like ultrasonic repellents actually work?
They can be helpful, but they're not a foolproof solution. Ultrasonic repellents emit high-frequency sounds that are supposed to be irritating to mice. Some people swear by them, while others find them to be less effective.
Right.
It might depend on the type of mice, the severity of the infestation, and the specific design of the device.
So it's worth trying, but maybe not relying on as your sole defense.
That's a good approach. Think of it as one part of a multi-layered strategy. You might also consider more natural deterrents like peppermint oil. Mice seem to dislike the strong scent, so soaking cotton balls in peppermint oil and placing them strategically around your home could help discourage them from nesting near your precious wiring.
Okay, so we've got sealing entry points, keeping things clean, using deterrents. What about those rodent-resistant materials Electrocode mentioned? What exactly are those, and are they worth the investment?
Rodent-resistant materials can be a game changer, especially if you're renovating or building a new home. One option is to use metal sheathing or conduit pipes to enclose your wiring.
Okay.
It's basically creating a physical barrier that mice can't chew through.
So instead of those tempting exposed wires, they're faced with a metal shield they can't get their teeth into.
Precisely. And there are also wires available with insulation made from materials that are less appealing to mice.
Now, what about situations where there's already existing wiring? Can you retrofit those with some kind of protection?
Absolutely. You can use conduit pipes to encase vulnerable sections of wiring, especially those in crawl spaces, attics, and basements. And you can install wire mesh over vents and other openings to prevent mice from accessing those areas.
That's good to know. So it's not a hopeless situation, even if you're dealing with an older home. Electrocode also mentioned the importance of professional inspections. Why is that so crucial?
A professional electrician can spot signs of mice damage that the average homeowner might miss.
Well,
They can also identify potential vulnerabilities in your electrical system and recommend preventative measures.
so it's like getting an expert set of eyes to assess your home's defenses. They can see things from a mouse's perspective and point out weaknesses we might not have noticed.
Exactly. It's worth the peace of mind knowing that your home's electrical system has been checked and deemed safe. And it's not just about identifying existing damage, it's about preventing future problems as well.
Now, what about those of us who think, oh, I don't have a mouse problem, I'm safe? What's the harm in being a little complacent?
Complacency is the biggest mistake you can make when it comes to mice. They're stealthy creatures, and infestations can happen quickly and silently.
Right.
Even if you've never had a problem before, doesn't mean you're immune.
So it's more about being aware of the potential and taking preventative measures just in case, rather than waiting for a problem to arise.
Exactly. And regular monitoring is key, even if you haven't seen any signs of mice. Setting traps or using motion sensors can help you detect any activity early on before it turns into a full-blown infestation.
It's like having a security system for your home, but for mice instead of burglars.
I love that analogy. You're essentially creating a system that alerts you to any breaches in your defenses so you can take action quickly. And if you do discover mice, don't hesitate to call in pest control professionals. They have the expertise and tools to handle infestations effectively and safely.
And while we're talking about pest control, let's not forget about our vehicles. I was surprised to learn from Electrocode that mice can chew on car wires too. Now, that seems like a whole other level of trouble.
You're right. It's a problem many car owners don't anticipate, but it can cause just as much damage as mice chewing on wires in your home.
Why are cars so appealing to mice? It's not like they're offering a cozy, warm nest like our houses do.
Actually, the warmth of the engine compartment, especially after you've been driving, can be attractive to mice seeking shelter, particularly in colder months. And the wiring under the hood provides plenty of tempting gnawing material for them.
I never thought about that. So those innocent-looking wires are like a buffet for mice seeking warmth and a dental workout. What can we do to protect our vehicles from these tiny mechanics?
Parking in a sealed garage is always the best option if you have one, but if you have to park outside, there's some preventative measures you can take.
Okay.
Electrocode suggests using rodent repellent sprays, which you can apply to the engine compartment and undercarriage of your car.
And they also mentioned that interesting idea of wrapping wires with capsaicin-infused tape. I have to admit, I was a little skeptical about that one.
I understand your skepticism, but it actually makes sense. Capsaicin is the compound that gives chili peppers their heat, and it turns out mice really don't like the sensation. Wrapping vulnerable wires with this tape creates a spicy barrier that discourages them from chewing.
It's like giving those wires a protective layer of fiery armor. I love that. So we've covered a lot of ground here. From sealing up our homes to creating spicy wire shields for our cars, it seems like there's a lot we can do to outsmart these tiny troublemakers.
Absolutely. It's all about being proactive and understanding that even small creatures can create big problems if we're not paying attention.
It feels like we've uncovered a whole hidden world today, a world of tiny teeth and big consequences.
Yeah, it's a reminder that sometimes the biggest threats come in the smallest packages.
And that being informed is the first step in protecting ourselves. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways you want listeners to remember?
Well, I think the most important thing is to be aware of the signs. We've covered a lot of them today, but it boils down to this. Don't ignore anything unusual. Whether it's those flickering lights, a weird burning smell, or a circuit breaker that keeps tripping, it's worth investigating.
And it's not just about knowing the signs, it's about taking action. Those preventative measures we discussed, like sealing entry points and keeping things clean, might seem small, but they can make a huge difference in keeping mice away from your wiring.
Exactly. Think of it as building a multi-layered defense system for your home. The more barriers you put up, the less likely mice are to get in and cause trouble. And remember, it's an ongoing process, not a one-time fix. Regular monitoring with traps or motion sensors can help you stay ahead of any potential problems.
You know, one thing that really struck me today is that this isn't just about protecting our homes, it's about protecting our health as well.
Right.
Those droppings near exposed wires are a serious concern.
Absolutely. It's easy to forget that mice can carry diseases and parasites. And when they're nesting near electrical systems, it creates a unique set of health hazards that we need to be aware of.
And it's not just about our own health. It's about the health of our families, our pets, everyone who shares our living spaces.
You're absolutely right. It's a reminder that taking care of our homes is also about taking care of each other.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to touch on those car wires again. It's not something most people think about, but the damage mice can do to a vehicle's electrical system can be just as extensive and costly as the damage they can do in a home.
And just as preventable. If you park outside, consider using those rodent repellent sprays or even that capsaicin-infused tape to protect vulnerable wires under the hood. It might seem like a small step, but it could save you a lot of headaches and expensive repairs down the road.
I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from tiny teeth to big problems, from flickering lights to fiery tape. We've gone deep into the hidden world of mice and their impact on our electrical systems, both at home and on the road.
It's been a fascinating journey, and I hope our listeners feel empowered to take action and protect themselves and their property.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that knowledge is power. The more we understand about mice and their behavior, the better equipped we are to prevent them from causing problems.
And remember, it's not about waging war on mice. It's about coexisting peacefully and safely. It's about being proactive, being aware, and taking those simple steps to create a harmonious balance between our world and theirs.
So let's all be a little more observant, a little more proactive, and a little more diligent in protecting our spaces from those furry little troublemakers. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.